For starters, wanted to just introduce a few folks who are here. First of all, myself, Alex Rivera. I'm one of the filmmakers. The other filmmaker, Cristina Ibarra, is in the back of the room there. Cristina, hands up. Yeah. Okay. And then we have Claudio Rojas. You want to come on up? Ven acá. ¿Quiere pasar al frente? Yep. And then Marco Saavedra, one of the Infiltrators, is in the house right here. That's it. Yeah. But then, of course, we're here at the NYU Law School thanks to a few folks. One is Andrew Friedman in the Action Lab as a sponsor. And thank you for pulling this together kind of last minute. It was a bit of a kismet, I guess, as they say, of people being in town simultaneously. And so, Andrew, thank you for pulling this together. And, of course, Alina Das. So what I thought we'd do just first is just to give a little bit of an explanation of Alina's connection to the story, because Alina's connection actually came after the film premiered. And so the film, you saw the story, and all those events unfolded really under the Obama administration, 2010, 2012, that time frame. It took us many years to figure out how to make the film, and we premiered it in 2019 at the Sundance Film Festival, now under the first Trump administration. And at that time, Claudio was on was having regular check-ins. His lawyers thought he had many good equities that would keep him in the country. He went to one of these check-ins just 2 weeks after the film premiered and was detained. And the film turned upside down. The film, which you saw, which is a story of immigrant power building, the power of organizing, and a hopeful story, turned into something like a nightmare, honestly. And we had to relive, in a sense, the film, trying to work with the Rojas family, advocates and attorneys, and the activists featured in the film to try to get him out of detention again, now in 2019. And we failed. The movement failed. We could tell the story of all of it, but along the way, and in that moment, we met a set of visionary lawyers who started to work on Claudio's case in the second phase. And so maybe with that, I'll pass the microphone to Claudio to speak a little bit about that moment and his participation in the film.
Hola. Bueno, yo no sé cómo ustedes han vivido esta película, ¿no? Pero, bueno, es una historia real, vivida, que la vivimos Marco, Viridiana y todo un grupo. A pesar que se ha filmado hace unos años atrás, a mí cuando la veo me sigue impactando, porque vuelvo a revivir lo mismo. Y me afecta un poco. Y me emociona, ¿no? Porque soy una persona de buen carácter y soy una persona dura a la vez, ¿no? Pero a mí me afecta revivir el sufrimiento de mi familia que esta situación migratoria causó, ¿no? Y la lucha que nosotros hemos tenido ahí adentro para poder liberar a muchos de los detenidos. Estábamos peleando contra un sistema que estaba tanto un juez como los deportadores en un círculo cerrado. Entonces no había posiblemente nadie que salga liberado del centro de detención. Estábamos bajo a una administración Obama que estaba diciendo: vamos a deportar, vendría a ser como ahora, vamos a deportar a las personas que tengan riesgos criminales y no vamos a deportar a aquellas personas que no tengan riesgos criminales, que vienen a hacer un bien al país. Y bueno, Obama y Napolitano estaban diciendo lo mismo, y sin embargo en el centro de detención habían casi 700 personas que estaban siendo removidas sin tener ningún tipo de riesgo criminal, con familias, con hijos, y no había nadie que lo defienda porque el círculo era cerrado y solamente era un negocio, una cuota de cama que se cobraba por detenidos, y la militarización GIO era la que se beneficiaba en remover, en detener y remover gente.
I
Decía
get
que
emotional.
estábamos en un círculo cerrado donde muy pocos eran los que tenían una fianza. Entonces, esta organización de jóvenes, ¿no? Como los Freeman, Marcos, que se infiltró, empezaron a agarrar fuerza y bueno, empezaron a luchar contra un sistema que hasta a veces un detenido me dijo, vos estás loco lo que estás haciendo. Bueno, te das cuenta que estás luchando contra un sistema, estás luchando contra los Estados Unidos. Y en ese tiempo, cuando yo había juntado unas 100 firmas que habíamos sacado afuera, mi hijo empezó solo y a través de eso un joven fue liberado. Y yo le relaté una historia y le dije, un hombre salió a caminar al mar y vio muchas estrellas de mar que el mar la había arrojado afuera. Y agarró una estrella y la tiró al agua. Y agarró otra estrella y la tiró al agua. Y se le acercó una persona y le dijo, por más que quieras ayudarla a todas, no lo vas a poder hacer. Y le dije, y agarró esa estrella y la tiró al agua. Quizás no la puedo ayudar a todas, pero con esta ya hice la diferencia. Y, continuando con lo que dijo Alex, una comunidad unida puede hacer una diferencia muy grande, así como los jóvenes que se arrimaron conmigo a ayudar a mi hijo y a luchar y lograron la liberación de muchos, incluso a mí. Esa es la fuerza que uno puede tener cuando se une, ¿no? Hoy en día tenemos una situación muy difícil, no solo migratoria, sino que hay muchas cosas y vemos como el pueblo se levantó, ¿no? Se han reunido, no sé cuántos millones se han reunido a protestar por las injusticias que están pasando en este país. Y eso, bueno, a mí me alegra mucho.
Oh, no, I just want to connect to, so when Claudio was attacked and basically detained and deported after the film premiered, through another immigrant rights activist named Ravi Ragbir, we met Alina and learned of her work at the intersection of the First Amendment and immigrant rights, which was something I had never thought about, the connection between those types of law, but when it seemed like Claudio was being detained and deported suddenly because of his participation in the film, it made a lot of sense. And at that point, I don't know if you want to take over, Alina, in terms of your work and what you saw in this case.
Sure. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you to Marco and to Claudio for everything that you've done. I think watching this film again, particularly in this moment, is incredibly inspiring because we are living in yet another time where we're seeing more people being detained in this country than ever before. And it's really amazing to see the courage and the heart that you both brought with others to this fight then, and knowing that we can do that now and that it's time for us to be brave. So it's really wonderful to be in this room with both of you and with so many others who lived this journey. As you mentioned, Alex, I had been representing someone who was also facing deportation and was detained in retaliation for his activism during the Trump administration. And when we got him out of detention, he had actually mentioned Claudio's case to me. He had seen it in the news, and we were connected at this moment. And it was very clear then that, the pattern was starting to emerge, that the Trump administration was choosing people who were speaking out in order to retaliate against them, to send a message to others that if you stand up and you criticize ICE, you will be next. So it was equally important for all of us to have our message back to the government that this was not acceptable. And I know I think you mentioned that, at the moment, it was heartbreaking. We filed a case in Florida, our clinic, along with the University of Miami and other organizations, other lawyers came together to try and fight Claudio's detention and his deportation, and the court threw out the case, and the appeals court refused to give us a pause. And I think in many ways, that was so devastating. Particularly, I always think of Claudio's story as, at the end of the day, a love story between him and his wife. Just an incredible, and his family, his sons, like that is the heart of, I think, every immigrant story. To see them suffer through this was horrific. But I think the victory is the struggle, is that was not, having one bad court decision was not the end of the story. It wasn't something that anyone was willing to give up on. And I have to give credit to you, Alex and Christina, for keeping this fight so visible for so long. And that proved to be incredibly important, because where the courts failed, I think the community ultimately won, that through the incredible story of Claudio and his family, we had these conversations through the Trump administration into the Biden administration to demand that they make right what happened, that they find ways for people like Claudio who've been targeted to return to the United States. And so it was through many different avenues that we were finally able to get a literal opening in our borders to allow Claudio to come back. And I'm very happy to say that through incredible work from many lawyers who have been working on Claudio's case at NYU, we were very happy finally this year, just a few weeks ago, really, that Claudio was able to get his green card and adjust his status.
Mi familia la más feliz.
My family was happy out of it.
But I wanted to ask you both to speak more about what seeing this film, having lived this experience, really a second film that has not yet been shown yet, about everything that happened after this film, what it means to you now, seeing everything that is happening in the current administration, what you think the lessons are for all of us, both as a filmmaker, as someone who's lived this experience, what you feel we should be taking away from it now.
Bueno, yo soy un poco de extenderme con los relatos, ¿no? Porque yo iba a llegar a la parte de mi ángel, ¿no? Que el Señor me puso en el camino, y me largo mucho. Bueno, esta película me gustaría a mí que se siga difundiendo para inspirar a más gente que sigan luchando, ¿no? Que sigan luchando por sus casos, porque el sufrimiento que hay en la comunidad emigrante en este momento es muy grande. A mí me duele mucho ver, por ejemplo, personas con el TPS que llevan 30 años, vidas establecidas acá, y sean removidas inhumanamente, separadas de familia, con hijos y todo. Personas que a lo mejor tienen 60, casi 70 años de edad, mandarlo a un país donde no tienen nada allá, eso es totalmente sobrehumano. Y bueno, lo vuelvo a repetir, el movimiento que vi la otra vez en protesta de todas estas injusticias, a mí siempre lo dije, ¿no? A mí me gustaría que millones, dice que hay 11, 12 millones de inmigrantes, que se levanten esos 11, 12 millones de inmigrantes y salgan a la calle y den darle al gobierno una señal clara para que haga algo por esta situación, ¿no? Porque quizás dice, bueno, vamos a deportar a las personas que tienen un récord criminal, que vienen a hacer daño al país. Bueno, ok, perfecto. Pero ¿qué pasa con las personas que están deportando? ¿Qué pasa? Entonces vemos que esto es una situación a lo mejor política, ¿no? Porque estamos en los partidos. Yo me extiendo para muchas ramas, ¿no? Que están defendiendo sus partidos, ¿no? Que su partido quede lo mejor posible. Y mientras tanto hay gente que está sufriendo, siendo separada, ¿no? Y busquemos una solución a los inmigrantes. Vamos a ver cuántos son, 11 millones, vamos a buscarle un camino para poderle, personas que realmente saben. El caso mío es desde 2010 que lo tienen en la mano. ¿Por qué se extendieron al 2019 para deportarme diciendo que yo tenía riesgo criminal, mintiendo encima? Eso es algo muy injusto. Entonces, a mí me gustaría que abogadas así como Alina se levanten, ¿no?, a pelear y esto sea un referente, ¿no?, de lo que la población inmigrante está sufriendo.
And for me, I guess, you know,
Yo creo que
as a filmmaker, you know, who's been committed to trying to think about border stories and immigrant stories now for 30 years, you know, being close to this family and this story was something life-changing. To be close to a family going through a deportation step by step was like, it just illuminated the violence and the horror of the system when you see it operating on a family up close, day by day, minute by minute. And then to think about millions of people going through this is, the emotional weight of it all is stunning and horrific. I think in the future, at some date, we'll look back at this time period like we look at the medieval era or the Crusades, or a time period of irrational social violence without a purpose. To contest it, you know, we're so grateful to have folks like Alina and others who worked on the case and have found these kind of, you know, gateways to push for something like justice, and it's so important. At the same time, as a storyteller and an artist, I'm interested in a horizon sort of further out in terms of a world where none of this happens. You know, imagining a world where people can move freely and with dignity. And I feel like that has to be a North Star. And so some new films I'm working on are kind of oriented towards that. Yeah, but I don't know what to say. It's a privilege to be around these people. And when we went through this, I guess the last thing I'll say is it was very complicated to go through this aftermath of the film that we made to try to uplift the story turned into a kind of weapon against the people who participated. And it caused, obviously, a lot of feelings for Christina and I, complicated feelings. But the only way I could resolve it is to say that this is a war. It's like a group of people that wants to hurt or eliminate another group of people. And with what we do with our life energy, we have to kind of pick a side, you know. And the side we've tried to pick is the side of justice and regular people. And in this case, this film was about a victory that then turned into a kind of nightmare, but then that led to a new constellation of allies and another moment of hope. And the battle's not over, right? It kind of goes back and forth, but yeah, I don't know what else to do but to be in it with you all. So that's it. But yeah.
And I think, I'm sure we would love now to get some questions from the audience. And while you think of your questions, I just wanted to take this opportunity to put in a plug. For those of you who are based here in New York State, there is a coalition of people who are fighting to end New York State's involvement with ICE through a series of bills, including the Dignity Not Detention Coalition, which I invite you all to join. We are closer now than ever to get Governor Hochul to sign this bill. She's already signaled, surprisingly, her support for portions of it, and so we are in a very deep fight in Albany, and it is a time for people to mobilize, as well as for New York for All, which is really a way of trying to crush the pipeline of collaboration between state and federal government on immigration deportation. So we really encourage you to join, and feel free to reach out to me and others in this room who are so involved in these movements here in New York State. We're close, and I think if we put enough pressure, like we've been taught, we can cross the finish line.
Pressure on Hochul specifically?
On Hochul and other New York State legislatures. There are debating a package right now. How far are they willing to go to protect immigrant New Yorkers? And we want them to go all the way. And so I think there's a real moment here that we can put pressure and see some results. So with that, I saw a question.
I first want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In this climate of fear, where do you get that strength? If you're doing a sequel, are you not afraid? And Marco, the advocates, the dreamers, what you risked in this climate as well. What happened to you after the film came out? And, how do we tap into your strength? Where does it come from?
Want Marco to answer a little bit, maybe?
¿O quiere usted primero, Claudio?
Conteste, Marco.
Thank you. Gracias a todo. I mean, they're not going to say it, but Claudio Rojas is the best immigration detention organizer in the world. Alex Rivera made the first sci-fi movie of the Global South, and Alina is, in my opinion, the foremost immigration lawyer in the country. So it's a privilege to be in this cosmology. And my mom is here, también, who is mi mundo and my rock. And she birthed so much love every day. Cada día crea un mundo más amoroso. Y quería resaltar de la película porque yo estuve detenido 3 semanas con Claudio Rojas y usted estaba detenido ahí por años, peleando décadas, ¿no? Y peleando todo este sistema y deportado y regresado. Y es muy breve en la película, como no se puede capturar décadas. Pero I want to just expand on one part of the film. Was the first thing, el primer día que nos conocimos. Y ya como nos conocimos un poquito, porque Emiliano le dijo un poco, y yo hablé con Emiliano un poco. Y yo me acuerdo cuando me fui, le dije a mi mamá que voy a ir a la Florida a ayudar a detenidos. Solo eso le dije. Y cuando ya llegué a la Florida, después de un bus, después del carro, estábamos en la playa meditando y yo llamé a mi mamá porque tenía que llamarle. No voy a ayudarlos, voy a entrar, voy a infiltrar. Entonces, perdón. Pero cuando ya entré, te conocí, nos hablamos, lo primero que Claudio dice es, tengo que hablar con tu mamá. So the first thing that when Claudio met me, the first day, the first hour in detention, he says, I know who you are and I need to talk to your mom. After I left New York City saying that I was going to help detainees because my mom would have stopped me if I said I was going to turn myself in, and then telling her before I turned myself in that I was going to turn myself in, and Claudio knowing this, pero usted lo sabía como padre. So because you had been detained with Emiliano, porque estuvo detenido con Emiliano, y Liliana que está aquí, Cristina que está aquí, saben como as guardians, as mothers, as parents. Y ahora que tengo a mi sobrina, ahora pienso que no lo haría ahora. And I think now that but still we have to continue. We have to build this new reality. So to me, it's we talk about intergenerational wealth, and I kind of hate that term because it just, to me, I read it as your family-owned slaves or exploited labor at some point in the food chain. But there's also intergenerational trauma, right? But there's also intergenerational love. But there's also intergenerational resilience and resistance and birthing movements and worlds because we come from fathers and mothers. And perdón, es que es mucho, it's a lot, y Claudio ya sabe que hablamos mucho because we organize a lot. Pero it's Good Friday, it's Viernes Santo, and so I just, one thing, and I'm sorry, it's just a meditation, is that Christ is on the cross because as a political prisoner being murdered by empire. Y en la cruz, Jesús dice a Juan, el discípulo que más ama, he aquí tu madre. So Christ on the cross being executed by empire, turns to John, his beloved disciple, and says, "This is Mary, and this is your mother." And he tells Mary, "This is your son." And so what I'm saying, not as a Christian, but as a person, is that we choose family. We can choose. Usted en detención dijo, "Este es Marco, no es mi hijo, pero es un hijo, y tengo que hablar con su madre." So that's my meditation. Sorry. Gracias. Claudio, a usted, a Alex, a Alina.
Hola, hola. Bueno, efectivamente es como dice Marco, ¿no? Que cuando Marco llegó al centro de detención, yo anteriormente estuve detenido con mi hijo y fue muy doloroso estar detenido en un centro de detención con su propio hijo, ¿no? Que el padre que lo tiene que cuidar, el padre eso, y su padre está detenido junto con él.
Yeah, as Marco is saying, I was being detained with my own son, and it's difficult.
Y cuando Marco llegó al centro de detención, fue como revivir la historia de mi hijo. Entonces Marco pasa a ser mi hijo. Yo lo tenía que cuidar a Marco porque yo sabía que Marco había ido a un centro de detención sin la aprobación de la madre, ¿no? Y sin la madre saber. Entonces yo me hice responsable de Marco y lo primero que era tener que cuidarlo. Y bueno, y yo creo que la fuerza, ¿no? La fuerza que te da a través del sufrimiento, ¿no? Te da para hacer lo que uno hace, ¿no? Es primero impotencia, ¿no? Es la impotencia que te da de ver tanta injusticia y tanto sufrimiento, especialmente el sufrimiento cuando lo experimenta uno mismo con su familia, ¿no? El sufrimiento que causa esta situación a la esposa, a los hijos, a la familia completa. Y eso lo veía todos los días en el centro de detención. Y para mí lo que te da fuerza es el amor a la familia y el amor al prójimo, ¿no? Porque uno está viendo que el prójimo, el que está al lado, está pasando lo mismo que está pasando y no lo puede ayudar más que darle una palabra. Es gracioso ver cómo una persona que está atravesando lo mismo tiene la fortaleza de darle una palabra a la otra persona que está pasando lo mismo. Eso es gracioso, pero es reconfortante.
Okay, I am part of a coalition with Alina and the NYU Legal Clinic, fighting for someone else who has, fighting his case. He spent, I think it was like around 6 months in Bergen during 2020, and we got him freed, but he's still fighting, and he's at risk. And we're looking for a pardon from Hochul for a previous case, and if anybody's interested in writing letters of support for him, I'll give you my contact information because, like, again, everybody deserves to be free.
Maybe one more question from the audience or reflection, yeah.
Hi, thank you guys so much for sharing your story. I don't have words. It's incredible to be here with you guys. I had a question about privacy and sharing your information. I think as the future goes on, that becomes an increasingly dangerous thing to do, and it was a central point, I think, in the film as well, that sharing information was not only a way to get in, but a way to get out too. And so I wonder, how have you guys balanced, sharing information for good, for, getting the word out there, the documentary, and also protecting people? Yeah.
No, I mean, I think we made this film because the group was engaged in an act of political transformation in which spreading awareness of what they were doing and their messaging was part of the movement. And so they had done everything from, like, the undocumented youth movement starts with a kind of coming out of the shadows was the big, and Marco can speak to this, but, speaking publicly about the status in front of cameras, in front of the press, and the communication war was part of the movement's strategy. That hit us back, because we made the film under the Obama administration, in which being public was part of power building, but released the film under Trump, where being public put a crosshairs on you. We didn't know that at the time. I think the pattern that Alina identified of lots of activists speaking out, all of a sudden being deported, it took a few years to observe that pattern and to realize it. So it's complicated, but I don't know personally how you struggle for freedom and are simultaneously invisible. I think that's an irresolvable problem. And so all you can do is just try to make, to work closely with comrades, to build deep relationships, to not, a lot of filmmakers drop into immigrant communities, make a film, and take off. To me, if you're going to do this kind of work, it's a deep commitment, and try to live up to that. But there's a lot of unanswerable questions in this area.
Bueno, yo creo que la película esta impactó y se notó, ¿no? Porque a mí me causó la deportación. Violaron la enmienda 1, represión. A mí me deportaban por represión, porque yo accedí a participar en esa película y hacer que esa película sea posible junto al director, ¿no? Y Cristina. Pero lo peor que puede haber es el silencio, que nosotros no levantemos la voz y no quedemos callados. Eso yo pienso que es peor a representar esta lucha, que podemos llegar a motivar a más personas a que también se metan en la lucha, y como vos lo decís, en la unión, en la fuerza, ya dejamos a que se frenen en cosas, porque nosotros lo vivimos. Yo estuve en un centro de detención donde se generó esa lucha y Marco ya había salido, pero yo estaba encerrado en un lugar donde venían los deportadores y hablaban entre ellos, y lo peor que ellos decían era que la cosa estaba fea y que tenían miedo que el centro de detención se cierre, que no sabían hasta dónde iban a llegar, para que vean el impacto que estaba haciendo la lucha que estaban haciendo estos jóvenes Dreamers, moviendo los políticos, moviendo todo. Entonces eso impactaba. Entonces para mí lo peor que podemos hacer es quedarnos callados. Ahora mire lo que yo decía, ¿no? La motivación, ¿no? ¿Cómo fue que esta película motivó que Alina, usted se vio motivada por esta película, ¿no?
As if you were motivated by this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I think, well, I watched the movie for the first time after you had been detained. And Christina and Alex had sent me a cut of the movie because it was still being shown in the festivals. And it was very surreal to watch a movie about speaking out and being brave and seeing that power and see it also being used against you. But I believe in the First Amendment, and I believe that the reason that they targeted you is because your voice was so successful, because it was working. And so it's our job to be louder at that point in time, never to allow this silencing to occur. And the fact that the courts sometimes will say no, they'll say we don't have the power to intervene, or the law isn't on your side. That's what we should expect from institutions that are built by people who are in power, who want to keep people silent. And our job is to fight against those institutions and to keep fighting until the law is our law. It's on our side and it reflects our views and our values. So the First Amendment there's still a battle right now. There's so many immigrants who are being silenced, who are being detained for speaking out. We continue to fight. Many of the legal papers we filed in your case are the genesis or the foundation of the arguments that we are currently bringing to courts and getting much more traction from these days, as the courts are waking up to the repression being a policy. So this fight is ongoing, and I think watching everything that you achieved and seeing how you've held on to those values, even as you were being detained, even as you were having this conversation with your family that this might be it, and I may be deported, and then we're deported. and having to live with that separation until the chance to come back and to come home, you never wavered from those values. And so for those of us who are able to keep fighting alongside you, of course we're motivated, and that gives us the power to keep speaking out and fighting for everyone's rights to speak out.
Gracias. Muy en breve, or did it?
You want to relate just for him?
¿Voy o no? Oh, solo quería, I just wanted to, solo quería romper una.
Dijeron en inglés que
Michael, mejor inglés y yo le traduzco.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to break a pattern because I think shame is so powerful and it's so ugly, and sometimes it also shows something that's so beautiful because, or regret. Porque usted, Claudio, me dijo, Claudio told me that his son felt a lot of regret because the reason why Claudio was detained was because Claudio, as a father, went to rescue Emiliano when he was first arrested at the port. And then I've heard also this feeling with Alex, with, oh my gosh, we made this movie and now the protagonist got deported. But I also want to recycle the word that we've been saying, that this is a war, that obviously it's not us, it's not shame or fear. I never blame my father for bringing me to this country across the border, or my mother. It was out of love, it was out of liberation. And so we need to also break these self-policing patterns that we carry too. Because we know, but because we care, we also feel beholden to that. So es lo único que quería decir.
And just to echo that, it was the love and the fight of this community that opened that door that finally allowed Claudio to be back. And it was Emiliano who was able to be that path to status for his entire family. So I think the love, it finds a way, and is so powerful. And it's beautiful. I think it's a pleasure for those of us who are here as observers, as people who are walking the path with you, to see that. So I really appreciate that point, Marco. It's something to be celebrated.
El amor te hace pasar barreras y fronteras.
Love crosses borders.
Not a better place to end than that. So thank you, everybody.
Antes de terminar, quiero mostrar este triunfo. A mi ángel, que me la mandó el Señor, así como los Dreamers, que también fueron mi ángel, el Señor levantó un ejército a mi favor y este es el resultado. Bien.